welcome to this tutorial about event sourcing in Blazor Server. We could also, of course, implement the event sourcing system in Blazor WebAssembly, but then we first would have to build an API, and because everything runs on the server, we don't have to make this step. Now, event sourcing, MediatR, CQRS, there are a lot of nouns in this area. I am also not an expert, but what is important to know for this tutorial? We will be using MediatR to build an event sourced system. In an event sourced system, we are storing the events and not the entities itself. So in this case, I'm going to build a simple application for a charity site. So we will be storing the donation events and not the donation. This allows us to have some additional properties on the donation event. For example, if it's failed or not, and if you would only store the donations, it wouldn't make that much sense to have a field which indicates if it's failed or not, because yeah, it's a donation already. So first I'm going to install the MediatR package and also the package to, so that's that. I'm using the release candidate version in the Visual Studio 2019 preview, but you can follow along with .NET Core 3.1, and also here the dependency injection. Now I quickly go into the startup file and I'm registering MediatR. Here I have to pass in the assembly that all the later defined commands and queries are stored. Now I'm going to define the donation event class. This is going to inherit from iRequest, and here that's the response. Now the donation event, you can call it event or command. In here we have a GUID, which is like the ID. Then we have property of type integer, which is the amount that they want to donate. And then here I'm going to define an enum name status. There are three possibilities: pending, failed, and cleared. I call it a status. And then whenever we are going to create a new event, I'm going to set a new ID. Now in here I have different possibilities. I could just leave it at that. Then we wouldn't return anything when we send this event, but I want to have to get a response. Here I have to pass the type of the response. So I'm just going to create it. I'm calling it public donation response. Here this class will have two properties. The first one will indicate if the donation has succeeded. And the second one is just going to be the message, which will just say if it's succeeded or not, and if it succeeded, we will thank the user for his or her donation. So that's that. And now the heart of the whole thing is the event handler. Now this event handler has to implement the interface. I'm going to call it donation event handler. It is implementing the interface iRequest handler, and here the donation event and the donation response. So I'm just going to mark the method async so that we don't have to explicitly return a task. Now in here we see that we are getting a donation event and we have to produce a donation response. Now what's the matter here? Of course, yeah. Here I have to call donation response, and now you have seen how the generic type constraint works. The generic type constraint states that this type here has to implement the interface I request of this type here. So now in here we are getting a donation event and we have to produce a donation response. How are we going to do this? First, we are not going to use a database, so we are just going to use a list to store the events. I call it donation events, just field initializer here, and then also a new random, because I want not that every event is getting cleared, so that we also have some failed donations. And this here is our event store. So we are just storing the events in this list here because we don't use a database. Now you may ask, like, why am I not putting the initialization here in the constructor too? Because from the UI I want to use this use this field, and the constructor here is running the first time when we send the first donation event. But we want to use this field before that, so I'm just going to use the field initializer here. So now back to this method. In here, I'm first going to get the ID of the passed in request so that I can change the event afterwards. Now I'm going to add the request to the donation events. Now it's important that the status is pending, but I'm just going to make it also explicitly. Status is pending. Now I'm going to generate a new integer, maximum 5,000. Now I'm going to await for exactly this time. This is going to simulate the process that we are going to the bank or the credit card company and stuff. And now here I'm asking if time is smaller than 2,000. In this case, we want the donation to fail. So we are going to search for our stored donation event, take the first one out and set its status to failed. Now we are going to return a donation response, succeeded false, and message unfortunately we couldn't process your donation. Now, if the time is bigger than 2,000 seconds, so 40% of the case it will fail, the other 60% we will succeed. We are going to search our donation event first or default and set the status to status cleared. Now we are returning a new donation response, succeeded true, and we are just thank you for the donation. Now that's already it here. So what we are doing here, we are first storing the donation requests in our event store, but with the status of pending, and then here, according to the randomly generated number, we are setting the status, we are updating the status. Now let's go into the index class. In here we are index class, index razor component, going to create an input where the users can choose their desired donation amount. And then, of course, I have to create a field which they can bind to. Bind event on input. Now here we are going to create a button. Just give it a margin at the top, and then here donate, and then just redisplaying the amount. So that's our asynchronous donate method. This method has to be asynchronous because the send method on the mediator object is asynchronous, but I will just show you how it looks. So now we are awaiting the donation. Now here I'm going to inject. First I'm going to import a mediator, and then I'm going to inject the mediator. No. I'm going to inject a type of iMediator. I'm going to inject a type that implements iMediator, and over this mediator, we can send our donation event. But first, no, we can just say donation event. Now the amount equals the amount here. It's asynchronous, so I have to await it. And then I'm getting back here a response, the donation response, which will encapsulate the message and the property to tell us if it succeeded or not, because I have to use this for the UI here. So now create field boolean and a field. So this is just everything for the styling and also message. Now, when we make a donation, we set display to false. I just quickly type out everything, and then I say you for what we use the properties. And then so if display is true, yeah, we display it, and otherwise we are hiding it. And then we here also display the message. So that's quite of a message. So okay, what are we doing here? Depending on the response, we either want to style it green or red. So info is green, danger is red. Therefore, we use the styling boolean here, and the styling is going to be set in here. So styling equals response dot succeeded. If it succeeded, then this is true, so we will style it green. If it's not succeeded, we will style it red. Display false. Whenever the user is clicking donate, we are going to hide this panel here, and we are only going to display it when we have set the message. So display true, and then here just make a refresh. So what are we doing? Now the styling I've shown you. Message, we're just going to set the message that we have received from here, our response, and then we are going to say display true, so that this alert here is seen. And here the display true, so if display is true, then display is block. Otherwise, if it's false, then display equals to none. And I think I have to here to set the set the semicolons. So, and now, of course, I have to show to the user how much money have we already donated. Now, I think I have defined it as a static class, as a static field. If the count is greater than 0, here we are going to display it, and for that I have copied it here. Yes, I have here the Bootstrap thing for it. So this will be a progress bar that has like 3 parts. Now, the first part will be background green, so this will display all the successful made donations. This here will be the pending ones, and this here will be red, stating the ones that haven't worked. Now here the value, now we don't need this attribute. The other attributes are needed. Now that's the most important thing here, the width. How are we going to calculate the width? We are going to do this by using lynch. So donation events. Now we are going to filter them. Here we only want the ones with status equals cleared. So the cleared. And now we are going to make a select and just select all the amounts and then call sum. And we are doing the pretty much exact same thing here. Also for the other ones, just that in this case we are going to change the filtering. So here it's pending and here it's failed. So let's have a look. Okay, so we don't see the progress bar yet. Now donate 5. Now we see it's pending. And it should, okay. So we started out with pending and then it got green because it took some time. The time is randomly generated. I'm going to donate some more. Pending again. It's getting green again. I want, okay, now we have seen. Now it was pending. Of course, everything starts out with pending, but then we have seen it failed. We here see the message. Unfortunately, we couldn't process it. Oh, again. And now it's going to work because, yeah, of course, if it takes longer than 2 seconds, it's always going to work. So that's just to illustrate that we can use MediatR to build an event-sourced system. And I think especially in cases like this, where we at the end want to display something that is using a property that indicates if the event has failed or succeeded, it's enormous good to do it this way. If I would have just stored the donation as a normal entity, it would be very hard to have the different statuses displayed. But here, because we use an event store, a very trivial event store, it's quite easy. Thank you very much for your attention.